When you think of tragic love stories, what comes to mind? Romeo and Juliet, or perhaps Bonnie and Clyde. In the world of art, there's a heartbreaking, real-life romance that rivals even the greatest of fictional tales. The love story between Amedeo Modigliani and Jeanne Hébuterne, a passionate artist and a devoted muse, ended in a double suicide, leaving behind not only great sorrow, but also an undeniable mark on art history. Their story is filled with passion, creativity, and immense sadness, set against the backdrop of Bohemian Paris. By the time Modigliani was a young man, he was already set on becoming an artist. He moved to Florence and later to Venice to study at art schools, but it wasn't until he arrived in Paris in 1906 that he found his true artistic voice. Modigliani quickly immersed himself in the avant-garde art scene of Montmartre and later Montparnasse, rubbing shoulders with Picasso, Constantine Brancusi, and other significant artists of the time. While his style evolved over the years, Modigliani is best known for his distinctive portraits and nudes, characterized by elongated figures, almond-shaped eyes, and serene expressions. His work was often met with resistance. In 1917, police shut down an exhibition of his nudes for being too scandalous. That exhibition has since become legendary in the art world for showcasing Modigliani's daring and unique vision. Despite his undeniable talent, Modigliani led a life marked by illness, poverty, and self-destructive tendencies. Tuberculosis had plagued him since childhood, and as an adult, he numbed his physical and emotional pain with drugs and alcohol. The bohemian lifestyle that surrounded him in Paris may have fueled his creativity, but it also took a heavy toll on his health. Enter Jeanne Hébuterne, a shy and talented young artist who would become Modigliani's and lover. Born in 1898 in a conservative Catholic family in Paris, Hébuterne pursued her own artistic dreams by enrolling in the prestigious Academy Colarossi, where she honed her skills as a painter. It was through the art world that she met Modigliani in 1917, and their connection was instant. Hébuterne was known for her quiet nature, her delicate beauty, and her unwavering loyalty to Modigliani. Though many people around her warned against becoming involved with a troubled artist, Jeanne was hopelessly in love. She moved in with Modigliani, despite her family's strong disapproval. This decision would forever change the course of her life. Modigliani, who often struggled with his demons, found in Hébuterne a source of comfort and inspiration. She appeared in numerous paintings, her features elongated in the same graceful style that characterized Modigliani's other portraits. Yet, unlike many of his other muses, Jeanne's presence in his work feels particularly tender. Their relationship was intense, but also marked by the hardships of poverty and illness. They lived in cramped, modest accommodations, and Modigliani's poor health continued to decline as tuberculosis ravaged his body. The art scene in early 20th century Paris was a paradox. On one hand, it was a period of immense creativity, with artists like Modigliani, Picasso, and Chagall pushing the boundaries of modern art. On the other hand, many of these artists lived in near destitution. Montparnasse and Montmartre were bohemian enclaves, where the price of creativity was often financial struggle. Modigliani and Hébuterne were no exception to this. They lived hand to mouth, surviving on the sale of Modigliani's paintings, which were often undervalued. His work, although recognized for its brilliance today, did not fetch high prices during his lifetime. Hébuterne, meanwhile, sacrificed her own artistic ambitions to support Modigliani. She took care of him as his illness worsened, and when they had a daughter together in 1918, Jeanne became even more dedicated to their family. In a letter to a friend, Modigliani described the relentless pain he experienced due to tuberculosis. He wrote, "I'm at the end of my rope. If it weren't for Jeanne, I wouldn't still be here." His words, though laced with his usual dramatic flair, reflect the depth of his dependence on Hébuterne, not just as a muse, but as an emotional anchor in a life filled with turmoil. By the winter of 1919, Modigliani's health was rapidly deteriorating. He was emaciated, struggling to breathe, and barely able to continue working. On January 24, 1920, at the age of 35, Modigliani died of tubercular meningitis. Jeanne, who was 9 months pregnant with their second child, was inconsolable. Her grief was so overwhelming that just 2 days after Modigliani's death, she threw herself from a fifth-floor window, taking her own life and the life of their unborn child. Jeanne was only 21 years old. This devastating act of love and despair shocked the art world and has since become one of the most tragic episodes in art history. The funeral for Modigliani was attended by many of his contemporaries, including Picasso and Brancusi, but Jeanne's family did not allow her to be buried beside him. Instead, she was buried in the cemetery of Bagnoux, far from the Montparnasse cemetery where Modigliani lay. It wasn't until 1930, after years of protests from friends and admirers of the couple, that Jeanne was finally reinterred next to her beloved Amedeo. Though Modigliani died poor and unrecognized, his artistic legacy has grown immeasurably since his death. Today, his works are celebrated for their unique combination of classical beauty and modernist innovation. The elongated forms in his portraits and nudes evoke both elegance and melancholy, a reflection of the emotional depth that pervades his work. One of Modigliani's most famous quotes offers insight into his artistic philosophy. "What I am seeking is not the real and not the unreal, but the subconscious, the mystery of what is instinctive in the human race." This desire to capture the essence of his subjects rather than their literal likeness is what makes his art so powerful. His paintings transcend the physical, diving into the soul of the sitter. Modigliani's work became especially popular in the decades following his death. In 2015, his painting Nu Koshech, 1917, sold for $170.4 million at auction, one of the highest prices ever paid for a piece of art. This staggering number highlights just how far Modigliani's work has come in terms of recognition and value. Yet for many, his art is priceless for another reason. It is a lasting testament to a man who poured his soul into every piece, despite the hardships he endured. Although Jeanne Hébuterne is most often remembered as Modigliani's muse and lover, she was a talented artist in her own right. Unfortunately, her artistic career was overshadowed by her relationship with Modigliani and her tragic death. However, in recent years, there has been a growing appreciation for Hébuterne's work. Her paintings, much like her personality, are delicate and introspective. They reflect a quiet sensitivity that contrasts with the more intense and sometimes aggressive works of her contemporaries. Jeanne's art provides a glimpse into her inner world, offering a counter-narrative to the often one-dimensional portrayal of her as merely Modigliani's muse. Her works are now displayed in museums and private collections, offering a chance for the world to see her more than just a tragic figure at the center of Modigliani's story. In many ways, Jeanne's art is an extension of her, a window into the soul of a woman who loved deeply, created quietly, and lived passionately. The love between Amedeo Modigliani and Jeanne Hébuterne continues to fascinate and haunt art lovers around the world. The relationship marked by passion, creativity, and tragedy has become the stuff of legend. It's a story of two people who were undeniably drawn to one another, but whose love was destined to end in heartbreak. Some might argue that the depth of their connection and the devastating way it ended has added an almost mythical quality to their lives. But at its core, the story of Modigliani and Hébuterne is one of real human emotions: love, loss, devotion, and despair. These are feelings that transcend time and place, making their story as compelling today as it was a century ago. Their tale served as a reminder of the intense emotional lives that often lie behind great works of art. For Modigliani, his love for Jeanne was not just a personal affair, but something that infused his work with an added layer of sensitivity and emotion. And for Jeanne, her love for Modigliani was an all-consuming force, one that ultimately led to her untimely death. The tragedy of Modigliani and Hébuterne resonates with us because it taps into universal themes: love, loss, and the inescapable tension between passion and pain. The timeless nature of their romance continues to capture the imagination of art enthusiasts and romantics alike. It's not just the art that makes them fascinating, but the very human experience that accompanies it. Their lives are a reminder that behind every great artist, there's often a deeply personal story, and in this case, a love that was as inspiring as it was devastating. Part of why their story remains so compelling today is the way it challenges conventional narratives about love and sacrifice. Jeanne's unwavering devotion to Modigliani, even at the cost of her own life, raises difficult questions about the boundaries of love and personal identity. Was her suicide an ultimate act of love or a tragic loss of self? It's this complexity that continues to draw people in. In today's world, where the idea of self-fulfillment takes precedence over romantic sacrifice, their story seems almost otherworldly. Yet the intensity of their love, the kind that consumes everything in its path, still strikes a chord. It's a stark reminder of how love can elevate, but also destroy the lives of those caught in its web. The love story of Modigliani and Hébuterne has been immortalized not only in their respective artworks, but also in literature, film, and popular culture. Numerous books have been written about the couple, each exploring their lives from different angles. For instance, Modigliani's bohemian lifestyle and tragic end have been depicted in the 2004 biopic Modigliani, starring Andy Garcia as the tortured artist. Though the film takes some creative liberties, it brings the emotional intensity of their relationship to the forefront, shedding light on how their love both inspired and consumed them. Beyond films, their love has been referenced in art exhibitions and historical retrospectives that aim to capture the passion and despair of their short time together. Curators and historians often look to their relationship as a lens through which to explore the wider bohemian culture of early 20th century Paris, a world where art, love, and poverty often collided in explosive ways. In many ways, Modigliani and Hébuterne relationship has become a symbol of the tragic artist-muse dynamic, an archetype that persists in discussions about art history. Moreover, their story has inspired poets, writers, and other artists to create works that reflect on the profound connection between love and creativity. While some view their tale as a cautionary one, warning of the dangers of losing oneself in love, others see it as a testament to the idea that great art often comes from great emotional depths. Regardless of the interpretation, the cultural impact of their relationship continues to reverberate. Love and art, a powerful, often painful connection. At its core, the relationship between Amedeo Modigliani and Jeanne Hébuterne invites a larger discussion about the intersection of love and art. Many of history's greatest artists have been driven by their romantic relationships, whether those relationships were supportive or destructive. For Modigliani, his love for Jeanne seemed to provide a grounding force, albeit one that could not save him from his physical decline. Similarly, Jeanne's devotion to Modigliani, while deeply romantic, ultimately consumed her. This connection between love and creativity is not unique to them, of course. Artists from Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera to Jackson Pollock and Lee Krasner have experienced the intense highs and lows that come with loving another creative soul. These relationships are often filled with passion, but they can also bring out the vulnerabilities and insecurities that many artists struggle with. In Modigliani's case, his art flourished during the years he spent with Jeanne. Her presence in his work is undeniable, not just in the literal sense, her face graces many of his paintings, but in the way that his portraits during this period seem to convey an added emotional depth. There's a softness, a vulnerability in his work that coincides with their time together. His elongated figures, far from being mere stylistic choices, often seem to reflect the delicate balance between beauty and fragility, a metaphor perhaps for the love they shared. For Jeanne, her life was inextricably linked to Modigliani's art. Though she was a talented artist in her own right, her identity became overshadowed by her role as his muse and lover. This dynamic, though romanticized by some, also speaks to the challenges faced by many women in the art world, especially during that era. Jeanne's own creativity was stifled by her devotion to Modigliani, a sacrifice that ultimately cost her life. Today, her artwork is gaining recognition, but during her lifetime, her potential was tragically unfulfilled. Why can't we look away? So why a century later are we still so captivated by the story of Amedeo Modigliani and Jeanne Hébuterne? Perhaps it's because their love story, with all its intensity and tragedy, mirrors the human experience in its most extreme form. We are drawn to stories that challenge us, that make us confront the complexities of life and love. Their relationship was far from perfect. It was messy, painful, and ultimately fatal. But they were also filled with moments of tenderness and beauty. In a world where we often seek out happy endings, the story of Modigliani and Hébuterne stands as a reminder that life doesn't always work that way. Love as they experienced it can be both uplifting and destructive. Their lives, though short, were filled with the kinds of highs and lows that many of us will never know. Yet through their art, they have left behind a lasting legacy that continues to speak to us. Their love story endures because it is not just about two people, it's about the human condition. It's about the ways in which we seek connection, even when it hurts us. It's about the sacrifices we make for the people we love and the ways in which those sacrifices can either elevate or consume us. And perhaps most of all, it's about the desire to create something meaningful, even in the face of overwhelming obstacles. The final resting place, a belated reunion. Though Amedeo Modigliani and Jeanne Hébuterne's love story ended in tragedy, their final resting place offers a sense of peace. After years of being buried in separate cemeteries, Jeanne was finally laid to rest beside Modigliani in the Montparnasse Cemetery in Paris, France. The inscription on her tomb reads, "Devoted companion to the extreme sacrifice." Their graves, side by side, serve as a poignant reminder of the love they shared, a love that transcended life. Today, art lovers and romantics visit the cemetery to pay their respects, drawn to the enduring allure of their story. In death, as in life, Modigliani and Hébuterne are inseparable, their love forever immortalized not only in their art, but in the hearts of those who continue to be moved by their tragic tale. While the world may debate the nature of their love, whether it was a beautiful romance or a tragic obsession, one thing remains certain. The story of Amedeo Modigliani and Jeanne Hébuterne is one that will never be forgotten. It lingers in the galleries of the world's finest museums, in the pages of art history books, and in the imaginations of all who hear it.